guys? Welcome to this edition of the Second Chance Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chance Dyson. And listen, I know I missed last week. I'm sorry. Just a lot going on, a lot of big stuff happening in my life. I signed my lease for my first apartment in Gainesville last week. I just had a ton going on with classes, getting everything finalized for my last classes down at Daytona State. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to recap what my picks were last week for college and for NFL. Make it easy on everybody just so that you know what happened last week. And so let's get right into it. And so since we didn't do it last week, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys Week 12's AP Top 25, which you knew was Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, Texas A&M, University of Florida, Cincinnati, BYU, Indiana, and Wisconsin, Wisconsin just has been told they are not eligible to play in the Big Ten Championship because they did not play enough games this season. Little tidbit for you there. So let's go ahead and go to the scores from last week, and we'll look at Week 12. The AP Top 25 clearly didn't get to cover it. We had Tulane versus Tulsa. Tulsa wins that one. Then Ohio State wins a close one over Indiana, 42-35. Florida and Trask just dominating Vanderbilt, 38-17. Coastal Carolina defeats Appalachian State, 34-23. BYU defeats North Alabama, 66-14. I mean, ungodly blowout. Then my upset pick of the week was Cincinnati versus UCF. I said that if UCF could play a complete football game and play hard on both sides of the ball, they would come close to winning this game against the number 7 Cincinnati, and it was damn close. Cincinnati squeaks by 36-33. Then we see a number 19 Northwestern defeating Wisconsin 17-7. Then Oregon beats UCLA in a close one, 38-35. Alabama walks all over Kentucky, 63-3. Iowa State smacks Kansas State 45-0. Auburn beats Tennessee 30-17. Georgia wins a close one against Mississippi State 31-24. Oklahoma unfortunately trounces Oklahoma State. Chuba Hubbard only 8 carries for 44 yards. He's fallen way down in the AP's leading rushers. Spencer Rattler, of course, an absolute day, 17-24, 301 yards, 4 touchdowns. A great game from him. Then we see NC State knock off number 21 Liberty, and just an upset of the century, of course. 15-14 score. I mean, one of the oddest scores that I've seen in college football in a long time. Liberty gets knocked off there, sent out of the AP, I believe. Then we see number 20 USC defeat Utah 33-17. And then we had a huge week of cancellations. Clemson and Florida State, if you know what's going on with Dabo and the media, I mean, there is a whole war going on in Clemson. Then Charlotte Marshall gets canceled. Central Arkansas and UL Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, they get canceled. Ole Miss and Texas A&M gets canceled. Texas and Kansas gets canceled. Georgia Tech and Miami gets canceled. I mean, huge week of cancellations, and I'll be honest with you, I think that game getting canceled was the best thing for Kansas to happen because I don't think it was going to be pretty for Texas. So, So that's it for Week 12. That's what happened last week. Now let's go ahead and jump over, and I'll give you guys the rankings for Week 13, which just came out today, which is the new, as of right now, stands for the college football playoffs. We see number 1 Alabama, number 2 Notre Dame, number 3 Clemson, number 4 Ohio State. And see, somehow Clemson jumps up above Ohio State, kind of a weird thing, but pretty much the same thing we saw last week. Couple changes. Number 5 Texas A&M, number 6 Florida, number 7 Cincinnati, number 8 Northwestern. They jump up there. And I think the prediction right now is Ohio State versus Northwestern for the Big Ten Championship, which sets up something huge if Northwestern can knock off Ohio State, because now either Texas A&M or Florida gets in. And right now, more than likely, the SEC Championship is going to be either, obviously, Florida, Alabama, or Texas A&M, Alabama. So then number 9, UGA. Number 10, Miami. Number 11, we see Oklahoma creep back up. Indiana falls to 12. Iowa State goes to 13. BYU somehow goes to 14, which makes absolutely no sense to me. I feel like BYU should be up above, Cincinnati. But regardless, Oklahoma State falls to 23. We see Texas at 17, Wisconsin to 16, Oregon at 15. I mean, it's just kind of an all over the place. So then we'll go ahead and hop in. Let's look at our predictions and scores for this week. Well, no scores, but just predictions. First, we've got number 13, Iowa State versus Texas. Number 17, again, pretty close in record. Iowa State 6-2, Texas 5-2. Ellinger still having a pretty decent season, 147-250, 22 touchdowns, 5 interceptions for 1,834 yards. Right now, it's a Texas 71.9 to a 28.1 matchup predictor. I got to be honest with you. I think I'm going to take Texas in this one as well. Then we see Nebraska versus Iowa. Nebraska, Scott Frost 1-3 to Iowa's 3-2. They sit at 24. I'm going to go with Iowa only because Scott Frost has kind of been a flop up in Nebraska, a team that I thought was going to go a long way, but unfortunately I was wrong. So I'm going to go with Iowa. Then we see Notre Dame face North Carolina, and I think this could potentially be the upset of the year. Keep an eye on this game because we all know this North Carolina team is very good and one of the best that Notre Dame will face so far. And I think we need to keep a close eye on this game. It's a Friday game at 3:30, which is really impressive. I mean, it's a Friday slated game for Notre Dame, which is rare. So, like I said, I'm gonna pick Notre Dame, but watch out for the North Carolina upset. Then we see the Battle of Oregon, Oregon versus Oregon State, Oregon 3-0, Oregon State 1-2. I'm picking Oregon. Not Oregon State and Oregon, the Ducks, And then Ohio State, Illinois. Ohio State number 4, clearly 4-0 versus Illinois 2-3. I'm taking Ohio State. Then we see Kentucky and Florida, and if it looks like anything of what Alabama did, I think Florida and Trask are going to do the same thing. So I'm taking UF in that one. Then we see Maryland 2-1 versus Indiana's 4-1. I'm going to go with Indiana. Then we see Texas Tech 3-5 and Oklahoma State 5-2. I'm going to take Oklahoma State. We see Tulsa and Houston get postponed. Minnesota and Wisconsin also getting postponed. I think this is more the reason as to why they're not going to be able to play in the Big Ten Championship now. So then we see Coastal Carolina, Texas State, number 20 Coastal Carolina. Texas State 2-9, Coastal Carolina 8-0. I don't see the train stopping rolling for Coastal Carolina here, so I'm going with them. Then we see, of course, as you listen to it, in my intro, every single time you listen to my podcast, we've got Auburn versus Alabama. Always a great game. This time around, we have Bo Nix versus, of course, Mac Jones. I mean, Najee Harris, Bigsby, both having phenomenal seasons. I got to be honest with you, it's a 92.2 Alabama over Auburn win rate, but I got to tell you, the Iron Bowl is always a thriller. So, I'm going to go with Alabama out of confidence, but again, this is always a close one to watch, so keep an eye on it. Then we see Pittsburgh versus Clemson. I'm going to go with Clemson. Sorry, Pitt, and sorry to my family in Pittsburgh, but I don't foresee a 5-4 Pitt team beating a 7-1 Clemson. But hey, anything can happen, so I'm going with Clemson. Then we see number 8 Northwestern versus 1-3 Michigan State. I'm going to take Northwestern. Then Colorado versus USC. Number 18 USC 3-0, Colorado 2-0, and this is another one of those toss-up games. I gotta be honest with you, I'm not foreseeing. I don't know who to pick in this one. I mean, we've got USC's quarterback goes by the name of Slavis. What is his first name? Kedon Slavis, sophomore, 94 of 133, 970 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions on the season. Then we see a Sam Neuer for the Colorado Buffaloes, 35 of 55, 512 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. So missing 2 touchdowns off of what the stats are for Slavis and minus 1 interception. As far as rushing goes, we've got a Broussard and Stepp. Broussard for Colorado, Stepp for USC. Stepp has 26 carries, 135 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the season, as where Broussard has 58 carries for 308 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think, personally, that's just on the season, so if we average it out, both teams have played about 3 games. So only about 100 yards rushing, close to it. I'm not a math major, so correct me if I'm wrong. Close to it per game, pretty balanced. Then we see the receivers, Stanley and St. Brown. St. Brown for USC, 19 receptions, 266 yards on the season. Stanley for Colorado with 12 receptions, 192 yards, and 1 touchdown. USC slated to win by a lot. So, just for the fun of it, I'm going to pick Colorado. We'll see what happens. Then we see Cincinnati versus Temple. Number 7, Cincinnati versus Temple. I'm going to go with Cincinnati, clearly, because they're 8-0. Temple's 1-6. Then LSU versus Texas A&M. I'd love to pick an upset by LSU, but just a team that's crumbled this year. So, I'm going to pick Texas A&M, but, again, anything can happen, so we'll keep an eye out on that one. Then we see Georgia versus South Carolina, number 9. Georgia 5-2, South Carolina 2-6. And South Carolina's upset and been close to upsetting a few teams this year. So keep an eye on this game. I don't think anything major is going to happen, but because obviously Georgia's number 9. It's not going to shake up much if they lose. So just keep an eye on it, though. I'm going to pick Georgia, but yeah, keep an eye on it. Then the last game on the slate, we see Oklahoma, number 11 now, versus West Virginia. Oklahoma 6-2, West Virginia 5-3. West Virginia, one of those dark horse teams that not a lot of people expected to be very good this season, that have come out and been fairly decent. So I'm going to take Oklahoma and Spencer Rattler. But this is another one of those games. Just keep an eye on it. Watch it. I think that West Virginia may have a chance to pull this one out. So that's the end for our Week 13 for this week, to coming up November 24th through the 30th. Now, let's go ahead and jump over to our NFL stuff. We're going to jump ship, as we always like to say. Hop over to the Pigskin Pick'em and see what you guys missed from last week. I got to tell you, I was so close to perfect. And I was very disappointed when Kyler and the Cardinals did not pull out that win over the Seahawks. I picked the Cardinals, and this is week 11 we're going to get into now. I picked the Cardinals as to where the Seahawks clearly won by a touchdown, 28-21, the final score. Just one of those games that obviously was clearly probably one of the games of the year. I mean, it was a Thursday night matchup. It was a great slate. It was a great game to watch. If you didn't watch it, I promise you missed out. So Seahawks come out on top. I picked the Cardinals there. Both teams were 6-3 at the time. Then after that, we have the Falcons versus the Saints. Clearly, I picked the Saints in this one. We see Drew Brees go out, but Taysom Hill come in, take the reins, and just absolutely take over. I mean, he was phenomenal. So then after that, we see the Bengals and one of the biggest injuries of the season. Joe Burrow blows out his knee. The Bengals lose the game 20-9, but clearly no one cares about the Bengals. Everyone cares about Burrow. That's all we care about. And he's slated to be out the rest of the year, obviously, with an ACL and MCL tear. And we will not see anything of him, maybe even for the next 2 years, as said by Booger McFarland. But I don't necessarily foresee that happening and him being gone that long. But regardless, we wish him a speedy recovery. And they come out. The football team comes out on top there, 20-9. Then the Browns defeat the Eagles. I picked the Browns. They win 22-17. Then the Panthers defeat the Lions in a shutout, 20-0. I picked the Panthers. Then the Titans come out on top of the Ravens, 30-24. I picked the Titans. Then the Patriots losing to the Texans, 27-20. Then we have the game that I was at. If you see now, we have a Second Chance Sports TikTok. Go check it out. See if you like it. I thought it was pretty cool. It was my first couple of TikToks. I made a part 1 and a part 2 for game day. I went to the Steelers-Jaguars game. The Steelers advanced to the 10-0 for the first time ever in franchise history. They beat the Jaguars 27-3 in what should have been even more of a blowout than it already was. But, of course, I mean, hey, any given Sunday. So don't forget, go check out that TikTok. It's at Second Chance Pod. Sorry to get off track, but I really enjoy doing TikToks now, so I want y'all to go check that out. Then we see the Dolphins getting upset by the Broncos. They lose 20-13. This was a game that I did not expect. Part of me wanted to pick the Broncos, and I'm going, no, because I still think Trevor's going to go through Denver. I think that's where Trevor Lawrence is destined to land, is the Denver Broncos. But I didn't expect it. I expected Tua to come out and just demolish the Broncos, and long story short, the Broncos come out on top, 20-13. Then we see the Chargers defeat the Jets in a close one, actually, 34-28. I was getting worried for a second, but honestly, I would have loved to have seen the Jets win. That would have been something that was a sight for everybody. It would have been hilarious. But, either way, they come out on top. The Chargers do, 34-28. Then the Cowboys winning a close one. I picked the Cowboys. Winning a close one against the Vikings, 31-28. Just an all-around kind of a ugly game. I mean, close one, but still kind of an ugly game. I mean, Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb both absolutely putting on a show, and that was pretty much the root of the game. That was, I mean, it was nothing but our young new receivers that came out of the draft just absolutely demolishing everything in sight. So, like I said, kind of a dull game. Still a great game, though, there. Then we see the Colts winning on a Blankenship game-winning field goal, 34-31 over the Packers. I picked the Colts. I personally knew that this Colts team had what it took to beat the Packers. Granted, it was a close one. I mean, we all know about the fumble. So it's just one of those things that, I personally saw. I had faith in the Colts regardless of the fumble or not. And somebody said something to me today that, kind of tweaked me. And I'm going, they said, had he not fumbled that ball, Aaron Rodgers was leading the Packers to a win. And, while I can see it, I still don't think that that would have been the end. I don't think that Rodgers would have led them down the field. I mean, I don't think he had a hot enough streak. I don't think he was ready for that. I think they underestimated the Colts more than anything. And that's just me, though. I mean, again, everybody has their own opinions, and like I said, leave it in the comments. I want to hear your opinions too. So whoever listens to this, like I said, leave it in the comments. I want to hear what your opinions were. Did you think, regardless of if that fumble hadn't have happened, Green Bay wins that game? Put it in the comments. I want to hear it. So then after that, we see the Chiefs finally beating the Raiders 35-31 in a close one. I mean, Derek Carr looking like the kid from Toy Story. I mean, everybody's seen the memes. It's hilarious. But regardless, the Chiefs come out on top. Then, of course, the Rams versus the Buccaneers. You already know I picked the Rams. Come on. Brady awful again. The receivers getting clamped down by pretty much Jalen Ramsey himself. Mike Evans fighting for one of the touchdowns, though, which was absolutely incredible. Of course, big love for Mike Evans. Godwin putting on a show as well, even with a messed up finger. I mean, the Buccaneers showed signs of hope, and I will give them that. They're 7-4 now, and which still isn't a bad record. But like I said at the beginning of the season, they're going to be one of those teams that slips in as the 7th seed in the wild card. But they are not going to be a division leader. The Saints are too good. And, I mean, every year you see they just got swept by the Saints again. I mean, of course, you already saw me having a heyday on Twitter about the whole Saints series. I mean, come on. But regardless, I actually said that the score was going to be 28-16, ended up being 27-24. I was kind of close. But, hey, Phil, if you're listening to this, I'm catching you, dog. I'm getting there on you. I'm at 98%. If you guys go check out Phil Talk Sports on Apple Podcasts and everywhere you can find a podcast, shout out to him. But I'm in, like I said, I'm in his pigskin pick'em, and I'm at 98%. I think he's at 98% as well, but he's got like 3 more points than me. So if he gets 2 more misses this week, I might catch him. I might catch up with him. I just got to be accurate though. And so with that being said, let's go into our first matchup on Thanksgiving Thursday. And of course, I want to say a happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys that listen. Of course, I'm thankful for each and every single one of you that have liked and shared and commented and taken the time to listen to my show. I'm of course thankful for you guys. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop in. So our first game of the day, Texans versus the Lions, 12:30 Thanksgiving football. You can't beat it. I'm personally going to go with the Texans in this one. I don't see the Lions winning, even though they're at 4-6 compared to the Texans 3-7. I'm going to go ahead and take Deshaun Watson in this one. Personally, I think Deshaun Watson versus Matt Stafford. I'm taking Deshaun Watson all day long. Then we see the Washington football team versus the Dallas Cowboys. I'm taking the Cowboys, of course. I mean, come on, both teams are 3-7. Of course, the NFC least. At its best, I'm taking the Cowboys. Then, of course, prime time. Here we go. 10-0 Steelers versus the 6-4 Ravens. I'm going with Pittsburgh, but I got to tell you, Ravens are putting Pittsburgh all over upset alert. But I will say one of the things that Pittsburgh is going to have an advantage at is that right now, as it stands, Mark Ingram and J.K. Dobbins are both out. So Ravens' rushing attack is going to be a lot slowed down. A lot more slowed down, I should say. And so I think that we're going to have to be careful of Lamar. A lot of read options probably going to be coming into play here. A lot of direct snaps probably, different wide receiver type runs. A lot of different stuff that Pittsburgh's going to have to watch out for. But I still foresee Pittsburgh coming out on top. Then after that, Sunday, our first game, we've got the Raiders versus the Falcons. You know what? I originally was thinking about taking the Falcons. I don't remember why. But I'm going to go ahead and switch that back over to the Raiders of Las Vegas. Don't know what I was thinking there, but we'll go ahead and take the Raiders. I'm taking them over the Falcons. Then we see the Chargers versus the Bills. I'm taking the Bills. Giants and the Bengals. With Joe Burrow out, I see no hope for this Bengals team, so I'm going with the Giants. Then we see the Browns versus the Jaguars. I'm going with the Browns. Titans versus the Colts. This is the decider of the AFC South as it stands right now. 7-3, both Titans and Colts. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think the Colts are ready for Derrick Henry. I think they're ready for it. So then after that, we see the Dolphins versus the Jets. I'm taking the Dolphins. As much as I would love to see the Jets win, I'm going with the Dolphins. Then we see the Panthers play the Vikings. I'm going with the Panthers. Both pretty close in record, 4-7 Panthers to a 4-6 Vikings team. This Vikings team still has a lot of hope for their season. I mean, they could very easily win out and still make the playoffs, but with a team like Tampa Bay coming up for them next week, I believe it is. It's either next week or the following week. I think that more than likely we don't see them win out, so I'm taking the Panthers in this one. Then the 6-4 Cardinals versus the 4-6 Patriots. I'm taking the Cardinals. Saints and Broncos. I'm taking the Saints. 49ers Rams. I'm taking the Rams. Chiefs versus Buccaneers. I mean, come on. You already know where I'm going. I'm taking the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes. Come on. Then Bears-Packers. I'm taking the Packers. But watch out for an upset alert from the Bears. I think the Bears might be able to steal this game away just like the Colts did, so keep an eye on it. Then we see the Seahawks versus the Eagles on Monday night. Clearly, I'm taking the Seahawks. Come on, man. I'm taking the Seahawks. 24-6 is my score prediction. We're going to go ahead and hit the submit your picks button. And that is going to wrap up this week's edition of the Second Chance Sports Podcast, NFL and NCAA recaps. I really hope you guys enjoy this. Again, I'm sorry for missing last week. But hey, don't forget, if you like this podcast, show it to a friend, share it, go like, rate, and subscribe. Check out our social medias now on TikTok at Second Chance Pod. Anywhere on social media you can look except for Facebook. Facebook's not that popular yet, but it'll get there. It will get there for sure. No, I'm just playing. I'll eventually have a Facebook page for it, but I'm just haven't started it yet. So we'll get there though. Like I said, work in progress. And yeah, I appreciate you guys for all the support. I wish you guys all a happy Thanksgiving. Again, please stay safe. Go watch some football. Enjoy your families. And have a great, great, great Thanksgiving. And we will see you next time.